Hi, and welcome to Anne's Family Recipe. Today I'm making an easy and delicious appetizer, my mom's Asparagus Canapés. This Asparagus Appetizer recipe is over 50 years old. My mom learned this from a friend in her bridge group when she was a newlywed, and she's been making it ever since for entertaining. And I always associate this with Easter time because it features asparagus, which is a wonderful spring vegetable. My first step was to roast a bunch of asparagus. So I started by washing all this asparagus and then I trimmed the ends, just probably about the bottom 2 inches or so because those are really tough, difficult to eat. I used a method that my sister Elizabeth Jane taught me that works so well for cooking asparagus perfectly and super fast. You broil the asparagus. I turned my broiler on high and I covered my asparagus in olive oil, a little bit of kosher salt and pepper, and then tossed it around and then spread it out evenly on my baking tray. Then I put the baking tray under the broiler for about 6 to 8 minutes. These little asparagus spears are very, very skinny, so it only took about 6 minutes. But just keep an eye on them. You can toss them around a little bit just to make sure they cook evenly, but they're perfect and they're done so fast. My next step is to prepare the sandwich bread that we're going to use to wrap up our little appetizers. So I'm making a half of my mom's original recipe. I have 10 slices of regular white sandwich bread here, and I'm just going to cut all the crusts off with a serrated knife. Now, don't throw away the crusts. I love saving these. This would be perfect for my pineapple bread pudding, which is a recipe that I'll link for you below. Or you could use them to make a French toast casserole on Easter morning. Whatever you want to use them for, don't throw them away. You could even put them into a food processor and make homemade breadcrumbs. That would be perfect. So put them in a freezer-safe Ziploc and save them for later. Next, I'm going to take each slice of bread, and with my rolling pin, I'm just going to roll it out so it's nice and flat and thin. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm making a half of a recipe. So for the filling, in my bowl here, I have just a couple of ounces of crumbled blue cheese that I've brought to room temperature. I also have half a brick or 4 ounces of cream cheese that I brought to room temperature. It's really soft because we want this all to incorporate together nicely. And then the original recipe calls for a whole egg. So I took 1 egg and I beat it up, and then I'm just going to use about half of that. So we'll combine them all together. I'm just going to start by mixing them together with a fork and we'll see if that's enough. I might need a little rubber spatula, we'll see. Next, I'm just going to use a butter knife to spread a little bit of this mixture on each slice of bread. I'm going to add the asparagus spears next to my little pieces of bread that have the filling spread on them. Now, you might have to kind of gauge based on the thickness of your asparagus spears. Mine are super duper skinny, but my bread is also really small. So I think what I'm going to do is take one and kind of cut it in half and then put it inside and roll it up, and it should be the perfect length. But you could just use one asparagus spear and have a little bit sticking out on either end, or a couple if yours are really skinny, whatever kind of works for you with the sizes that you're working with the bread and the asparagus. So let's roll these up. So I've taken 2 of these asparagus spears and cut them in half, and then I'm going to kind of roll this up like a little burrito, nice and tight. And then to hold it into place, I'm just using a toothpick. So there's one more step before these are complete, and that is each little roll-up is going to take a dive in some melted butter. So I have 1 stick of unsalted butter here that I melted and I allowed to cool, just because I might be touching a little bit. I didn't want to burn myself. So I think what I'm going to do is dunk these in and then just use a spoon to kind of bathe them in the butter. They're going to be good, trust me. After these are all coated in butter, I'm going to pop them in the freezer right here on this cookie tray just for about 15 minutes so they'll firm up and they'll be really easy to slice, probably into thirds. That's what the original recipe calls for. I don't know, like I said, my bread was pretty small, so we'll see. I might do halves, maybe thirds, but you just want little bite-sized nibbles here. And then you just bake them off and they're ready to eat. So my asparagus appetizers have firmed up a little bit in the freezer. Quick tip, you probably want to put a piece of parchment paper down on your baking sheet because of course my butter froze directly to the cookie sheet, so I had to kind of use a little spatula or my knife to kind of shimmy them off of the cutting board. But they're fine, they're totally intact, we're good to go. So I think I'm just gonna pull out the toothpicks and then cut mine in half. And while I do that, I've got my oven preheating to 400 degrees, and then these just have to bake for about 15 minutes. You can also cut them up and then put them back into like a freezer Ziploc bag and save them for a later date. So this is a great make-ahead appetizer. My asparagus canapés have finished baking, 15 minutes at 400 degrees, and my house smells warm and buttery and toasty, and I cannot wait to give these a taste. Now, honestly, I haven't had these in years, so I am super excited to see if they're as good as I remember. Okay, pick a good one here. Oh my gosh, that's such a good combination. They're nice and toasty and crispy. Of course, they're super duper buttery. And you have that like punch from the blue cheese. So good. I should have made the full recipe. You have to try these this Easter or anytime you're entertaining. These are so awesome. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and follow me on Instagram at Anne's Family Recipe. Thank you so much for joining me in my kitchen. Happy Easter, and I'll see you again soon with another family recipe. For the full recipe, check the description box below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for joining me in my kitchen.